Megan pressed her forehead against the frost-laced windowpane, watching the snow swirl in the flood of the porch light. The night outside was a living thing, wind howling like a distant creature, drifts of white shifting and growing against the dark pines. Sunrise Lodge was supposed to be a cozy haven, but tonight it felt like a wooden island drowning in a sea of winter. The logs in the fireplace crackled weakly, and Megan shivered despite her thick wool sweater. Behind her, Jason and Dev argued in low voices over the generator's flickering power. Every so often the lights would dim and buzz, threatening to plunge the lodge into darkness. Sarah sat curled on the threadbare sofa, knees hugged to her chest, eyes fixed on the fire. None of them had spoken much since dusk. They were together again for the first time in a year, but this was no happy reunion. Megan tore her gaze from the snow and glanced at her friends. Sarah's face was drawn and pale, dark smudges beneath her eyes. She hadn't been sleeping again. Jason paced near the hearth, running a hand through his short blonde hair. Only Dev attempted a smile when Megan looked his way. He lifted his mug of instant coffee and a little toast. "Hell of a storm, huh?" Dev said, tone artificially bright. "Welcome to our winter wonderland, where the snow is deep, the Wi-Fi is non-existent, and the power is, basically, garbage." Jason huffed, kicking at a rug. "I should have topped off the generator earlier. Fuel's low. It's on me." "We still have the backup can, right?" Megan asked, stepping away from the window. She pulled the heavy curtains shut, shutting out the sight of the storm. For a second she thought she'd seen a shape by the tree line, a lone figure, but it must have been a trick of the windblown snow. "Yeah," Dev answered. "I brought an extra jerry can. It's out back on the porch." Sarah spoke up softly, without looking away from the flames. "We shouldn't have come back here." A heavy silence fell. None of them wanted to touch that statement. Megan's stomach knotted as she perched on the arm of the sofa near Sarah. "We agreed," Megan said gently. "We all needed some kind of closure." At the word, closure, Jason let out a bitter snort. "Tell me how this gives us closure, Meg. Freezing our butts off in Nick's old lodge, on the anniversary of—" He caught himself, biting off the rest. Megan flinched. The anniversary of Nick's disappearance. They never found her brother's body in these mountains, just the wreck of his snowmobile and a trail of blood leading into the pines. The search team combed the area for days, finding nothing. Eventually, everyone said Nick Fowler was dead. Everyone except Megan. She'd been the one to insist they all return tonight, 1 year later. Not that she truly expected a miracle, but some part of her refused to let go without certainty. Sarah's thin fingers touched Megan's hand. "It's not your fault," she murmured. Megan forced a smile for Sarah's sake. If only she could believe that. Guilt gnawed at all of them in different ways. Megan for not stopping Nick from riding out that night. Jason for failing to keep up on the trail. Dev for suggesting the late-night snowmobile race in the first place. And Sarah. Sarah had lost the boy she loved. Dev cleared his throat and reached into his backpack by the hearth. I found something at the ranger station." He pulled out a charred leather journal. "It belonged to an old mine foreman from the 1950s. He wrote about being snowed in, about people going mad from hunger. One line stuck with me: hunger makes monsters of men. Creepy, huh?" Sarah visibly shuddered, and Megan felt her skin crawl. Jason forced a chuckle. "That's enough bedtime stories, Dev. We're all jumpy already." Before Dev could reply, a sudden thud rattled the front door on its hinges. Everyone jumped. Dev nearly dropped the journal into the fire. "What was that?" Jason hissed. They waited, hearts pounding. The wind keened outside like a living thing in pain. It could have been a loose shutter banging, but the sound was too heavy, too deliberate. "I'll check," Jason said, grabbing his coat from a hook. "Could be a branch about to break a window, or that damn woodpile." "I'll go with you," Dev volunteered, eyes darting to the door. Megan and Sarah hovered anxiously as the two men stepped onto the porch with a flashlight and the fireplace poker. A swirl of frigid air swept in. Megan gasped as snowflakes stung her face before she got the door closed. She and Sarah exchanged tense glances. "They'll be right back," Megan murmured, more to convince herself than Sarah. Sarah nodded, arms wrapped tightly around her knees. "I have a bad feeling about tonight," she whispered. Megan wanted to reassure her, but the same dread was coiling in her own gut. "It's just the storm making everything creak and bang," she said, forcing confidence into her voice. "They'll be back any minute." Minutes crept by. The fire popped, casting jittery shadows on the log walls. Megan's fingernails dug into her palms as she strained to hear something, anything, over the wail of the wind. At last, the door burst open and Jason and Dev stumbled in, trailing gusts of snow. "Nothing out there," Jason said tightly in response to their anxious looks. He kicked the door shut and bolted it. "Didn't see a damn thing. Could have been a chunk of ice falling off the roof, for all I know." Dev nodded along, but his uneasy eyes told a different story. He leaned the iron poker back by the hearth. "Whatever it was, it's gone now." Sarah's voice trembled. "So what do we do now? Just wait out the storm and hope nothing else goes bump in the night?" Jason cleared his throat and tried to sound upbeat. "We need to stay calm until morning. Let's distract ourselves." He managed a stiff smile. "How about a game of cards? I saw a deck in the cabinet. And I brought a bottle of Jack that's begging to be opened." Dev let out a breath. "Count me in. Nothing like whiskey and poker to soothe the nerves, right?" Megan fetched the deck and some dusty glasses while Jason poured generous shots all around. They gathered on the rug by the fire, trying for a semblance of normalcy. For a short while, they even managed a few weak laughs at Dev's terrible shuffling and the exaggerated outrage when Sarah won the first hand. The whiskey's burn in Megan's chest steadied her, and she almost let herself believe they might just get through the night peacefully. Outside, the wind kept howling. The cabin rattled, but inside the circle of firelight, the friends clung to small talk and the illusion of safety. A sudden flicker made all four look up. The lamps dimmed and the fridge kicked off with a groan. The generator was sputtering. Jason set down his cards. "It's running low on fuel. I'll top it off now before it dies completely." "I'm coming too," Megan said. She wasn't about to let anyone go out alone again. They bundled into parkas and boots. On a wary impulse, Megan grabbed the iron poker from the hearth. Jason raised an eyebrow. "Expecting to duel a snowman?" "Just being careful," she muttered. Outside, the cold hit like a fist, stealing Megan's breath. Snowflakes swarmed around them, and the trees were just looming shapes in the dark. They trudged through the drifts to the small shed where the generator chugged along. Jason wrestled the fuel cap open and began pouring from the spare gas can, the sharp smell of gasoline momentarily cutting through the piney air. Megan kept the flashlight beam scanning the tree line, poker in hand, every muscle tight. The wind tore at her hood, making it hard to hear anything but its roar. Still, some instinct made her shout, "Jason, hurry!" A split second later, something exploded out of the darkness. A pale blur slammed into Jason, knocking him onto his back in the snow. He shouted in surprise, the fuel can toppling and glugging gasoline into the drifts. Megan's flashlight caught a flurry of movement, gaunt limbs, a flash of eyes reflecting amber in the light. Some kind of animal? It was all happening too fast. "Get off him!" Megan ran forward and swung the poker with all her strength. She felt it connect with a solid thunk. A high-pitched shriek tore through the night, unlike any animal cry she'd heard, equal parts rage and pain. The figure reared back from Jason. In the weak light, Megan saw it clearly for an instant and nearly screamed. Emaciated, ash-pale arms and legs, tangled black hair, a gaunt face with eyes burning orange. Then it scuttled backward, dropping to a low crawl, and in 2 heartbeats vanished into the storm-whipped shadows beyond the shed. Chest heaving, Megan grabbed Jason's arm and yanked him up. "Go, run!" They bolted for the lodge, slipping and stumbling through the snow. Jason clutched at his neck as he ran. Blood streamed between his fingers from 4 slashes where the creature's claws had raked him. They burst through the front door, slamming and bolting it behind them. Both of them were shaking uncontrollably, clouds of breath pouring from their lips. We need to tell the others." Dev and Sarah sprang up as Megan and Jason burst into the room, bolting the door. "Something attacked us out there," Megan gasped. "Not a bear, something else." Jason's face was bloodless. "It moved so fast. It almost seemed human, but no human could do that." Dev grabbed the iron skillet from the hearth, hands trembling. "Maybe a wolf? Or some crazy person?" "No wolf," Jason said, pressing a sleeve to the bleeding gashes on his neck. "Whatever it is, it's dangerous." Sarah stood by the fire, white-faced. "We have to call for help." "There's no signal," Megan reminded her, trying to stay calm. "And the road's snowed in. No one can come tonight." Jason hefted his hatchet, jaw set. "Then we secure this place and hold out till morning." They moved swiftly, fueled by fear. Furniture was dragged, windows shuttered and barricaded. In minutes, they had blocked every possible entry. The 4 of them regrouped near the dimming fire, weapons clutched tight, nerves frayed raw. The only sounds were the wind battering the walls and their own ragged breathing. Sarah was silently crying. Megan squeezed her arm in reassurance. A heavy thump jolted the ceiling, dislodging a sprinkle of dust from the rafters. Something was on the roof. They all looked up. A scrabbling of claws echoed above against the howling wind. Suddenly, a sharp crash, glass shattering somewhere upstairs. Sarah bit back a shriek. Jason positioned himself at the foot of the stairs, hatchet raised. Megan, Dev, and Sarah clustered close behind, staring toward the dark second-floor hall. Whatever was out there had just gotten in. From the darkness at the top of the stairs came a low, guttural growl. Megan's blood ran cold as a gaunt silhouette emerged onto the landing, eyes glowing like embers in a skeletal face. "Come on, then," Jason snarled, gripping his hatchet. The creature lunged down the stairs in a blur of pale limbs. Dev swung the skillet, but the thing crashed into him with inhuman force. They hit the floor hard. There was a wet crunch, and Dev went limp beneath the monster's claws. Jason barely had time to shout before the creature spun and swiped at him. The blow sent Jason hurtling into the wall before he could bring his hatchet down. He collapsed in a heap, the hatchet clattering from his hand. Megan screamed as both of her friends fell. The creature rose from Dev's broken form and fixed its burning eyes on Sarah. Sarah's back hit the wall, her eyes huge with terror. The creature crouched, muscles coiled as if to spring. Then it spoke. "Sarah." It was a broken, guttural whisper of her name, as if the word were foreign on its tongue. The voice had a faint echo of Nick's tone. Sarah's hands trembled over her mouth. "Nick?" she whispered, hope and disbelief warring in her tear-filled eyes. Megan's heart lurched. "Nick? It couldn't be." She tried to shout a warning to Sarah, but terror sealed her throat. The creature gave a low whine, almost like a sob, and cocked its head. For one fleeting moment, something like recognition glinted in its fiery eyes. "Nick, it's me," Sarah choked out. She took a half-step forward, arm outstretched. "We can help you." In a flash, the creature's face twisted back into a mask of rage. The moment of humanity was gone. It lunged. "No!" Megan finally found her voice as the creature slammed Sarah to the floor. Its jaws clamped onto Sarah's shoulder with a sickening crunch. Sarah screamed, a short, piercing wail of agony. Blood splattered across the floorboards. Megan howled in fury. She snatched up the iron poker and hurled it with all her might. The metal bar struck the thing's back, knocking it off balance for a heartbeat. The monster loosened its grip, rearing back with a snarl. Sarah's body slumped to the side, her hands pressed uselessly against the torrent of blood at her neck. The creature turned, incandescent eyes now fixed on Megan. Megan stood her ground, though her whole body quaked. In the firelight she could see the monster clearly, and at last she knew the horrible truth. "Nick!" she whispered, her voice breaking. It sprang at her. Megan dove aside with a cry. The creature's claws raked empty air inches from her face. She hit the floor hard, pain jolting up her side. The creature skidded and collided with the dining table, splintering wood. Megan scrabbled backward frantically, her hands sliding over something cold and metallic, the overturned jerry can of gasoline Jason had brought in earlier. Nick, no, the thing, recovered, crawling toward her with a predatory hiss. Its clawed hands gouged the floorboards as it closed in. Megan's trembling fingers fumbled at the can's spout. As the creature pounced, she swung the jerry can up and doused it in gasoline. It recoiled, screeching in confusion as fuel soaked its pale skin. The chemical fumes burned Megan's nose, but she didn't flinch. She seized a flaming piece of wood from the shattered fireplace. With a scream, Megan hurled the burning log at the creature. The effect was immediate. Whoosh! Flames exploded over the monster's body. It let out an unearthly shriek, a sound of pure agony and fury. It thrashed wildly, trying to smother the fire with its hands, but the gasoline flared hot and fast, devouring flesh and hair in seconds. Megan staggered upright, heart in her throat, eyes never leaving the inferno that writhed before her. Through the curtain of fire, she glimpsed the creature's face blistering and blackening. For one terrible instant, she saw Nick in those eyes again, Nick, terrified and suffering. He reached a burning hand toward her, as if pleading for mercy. Tears streaked Megan's soot-smeared cheeks. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, voice lost in the roar of the flames. The thing that had once been Nick collapsed in a charred heap. Its screams died away, leaving only the crackle of flames. The stench of cooked meat and burned hair billowed through the lodge. Silence fell, broken only by the rasp of Megan's breathing and the roar of the fire now spreading to the rug and walls. A weak wheezing sound jolted Megan from her horror. Sarah was still alive, sprawled against the wall in a glossy pool of blood. She was trying to speak. Megan rushed to her side and knelt, cradling Sarah gently. "Sarah, I'm here," she whispered, voice thick with tears. Sarah's eyes fluttered open. Her face was so pale. He remembered me for a second," she gurgled, a tear tracking through the blood on her cheek. Megan brushed a clump of sticky hair from Sarah's forehead. "He did," she crooned, trying to keep her voice steady. "He knew you were here, Sarah." Sarah managed the faintest sad smile. Her fingers twitched, reaching for Megan's hand. "Tell them I'm sorry," she breathed. Maybe she meant her parents, or maybe she meant Nick, an apology for what he'd become. Before Megan could answer, Sarah's body shuddered and fell still. A last breath escaped her lips in a soft sigh. Megan bowed her head, a keening cry ripping out from deep inside her. She clung to Sarah's lifeless body, rocking as the lodge around them began to burn. A crash from behind sent up a burst of sparks. The fire had chewed through a rafter, collapsing part of the ceiling. Smoke choked the air. Coughing, eyes burning, Megan knew she had to get out or she'd join her friends in death. "I'm sorry," she whispered, gently laying Sarah down and brushing her fingers over her friend's cooling cheek. With that, Megan forced herself up and stumbled through the front door into the snow. The shock of the cold air and sudden quiet was staggering. Dawn was creeping in, a gray pallor seeping into the stormy sky as the long night finally gave way. Snowflakes drifted lazily now, the wind dying to a low moan. Megan staggered a few yards from the blazing lodge and collapsed to her knees. She was alone. Somehow, impossibly, she had survived, and now she was alone in a world of ash and silence. For a long moment Megan knelt there, numb, as the sky lightened. The wind whispered through the blackened pines, and to her ears it almost sounded like someone calling her name, a final echo of the brother she had lost. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve and drew a trembling breath. The nightmare night was over, and daylight had come, but nothing would ever be the same. She knew she couldn't stay here among the ashes and ghosts. Slowly, Megan rose to her feet. Without looking back at the burning ruins of the lodge or the bodies of her friends, she started walking down the mountainside. Her legs were unsteady and every step hurt, but she kept moving. As Megan disappeared into the cold, quiet morning, the wind gently carried a single word through the trees: Megan, or so she imagined. She did not look back.
If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like, comment, or share this video with your friends. Subscribe to our channel to hear more stories like this one.